Okay guys, we have a 2014 F150 here, and the customer requested that we do a rear brake and rotor job here. The pads in the rear are getting really slim, and the front rotors were completely screwed up on the ground, but I'll do that in a separate video. So basically what we got here for the rear pads, this is a 3.5 liter EcoBoost FX4. Part number for the rear pads, BRF 1550, or the actual Ford part number FL3Z 2200-B. And then the rotor for the rear is this one, FL3Z 2C026-Charlie. That's the rear rotor. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how I would go about doing this. So first of all, I want to relieve the pressure. Everybody has their own way of doing it. There's 1,000 different ways, and I'm sure there's people in the comment section that'll bitch and gripe about stuff, but here we go. I take this and put it here on an angle and catch it, and then I'll pull it forward and start relieving the pressure on this piston right here. Once I get a little room, I'll open that pad up, and then I'll go back into it and push the other way until that caliper collapses completely. So now it's pushed all the way in. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take these 13mm caliper pin bolts out, and then I'll check these slide pins and make sure they're not froze up. So I'm going to pull these out and I'll be right back. Alright, now that I've got this is a really light caliper, so if you let it hang, you're not going to do anything. Some people have hooks, they like to hang them up, but these are so small, you're not going to bother it by letting it hang. So I'm going to pry those pads off of there, they're junk. Take the clip, pry them off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, I think they're 18 mil if I remember correctly, the bolts off of the caliper bracket here, and I'm going to take this bracket off and clean all this stuff. You check these slide pins, they're moving real nice and easy, so that's good. I'll just clean them up, re-grease them and put them back. Clean up all this area and stuff right here. You're just going to abrasive this, or you can use like a wire brush, and then I'll put a dab of Loctite back on these anchor pin bolt, or these caliper mounting bracket bolts. I'll put a dab of red Loctite and put them back because I don't want them coming off. But I'll be back and we'll knock this filter off of here. Okay, you do have emergency brakes under here. Some guys will back those emergency brakes off to let this off of there, but those emergency brakes really aren't touching it. If I can get it off pretty easy, I won't do it. But if I have to beat the living crap out of these things, then I'll back the emergency brake off and continue. But here, I just hit a couple times. Sorry, my service rider came out here and needed something from me, so I had to pause. And now, I just work it and wiggle it off of here. Sorry. I just do the rest by hand. I'll just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle and pull it right off. Now I'll just inspect for any kind of, wheel seal leaks or anything in here. I don't see any axle seals leaking or anything like that. I'll just take a brush to it, clean everything off a little bit, and I'll spray it with some brake clean. Some guys won't even do this. They'll just go ahead and throw everything, clean up the face, and put everything back on. But I like to try to clean the surfaces of where everything makes contact the best I can. And now what I'll do is I'll take my abrasive wheel and I'll clean all this up, and then I'll put my rotor back on. So I just went around and cleaned it up a little bit. Some guys like to put a little anti-seize around this right here. I'm not going to do all that. These Fords rust up and the wheel's going to get stuck on there and you're going to have to beat it off anyway. That anti-seize can come out and get onto the brake pads and it can make a mess. I don't do that. I clean it up just a little bit. I throw the wheels back on and let it ride. So let's put the caliper on. The rotor on. I said caliper the last slide, but the rotor's on now. These are a paint coated surface. Some of the Ford ones come with it, some of them don't. This way they don't have to pack these in oil so they don't rust. It's just fine the way it is. The brake pads will wear off their wear pattern, so you don't have to worry about taking anything off. Just leave these alone and they will be fine. Now let's go ahead and assemble the caliper, the bracket, everything else like that. And remember, when you put your bolts and stuff back in, just go ahead and put a dab of red Loctite in there and snug everything up real tight. As you can see, I just put a very, very little bit. It doesn't need very much for these anchor bolts. Okay, here you go with the clips installed and the little areas clean. Make sure these clips are facing the back side and not in, because they will hit this rotor face. Now, the inboard pads to the inside of the vehicle have to get these little dollops of grease on the back, and then when you're done with that, you take these little metal pieces and you slide them over. Like so, and that is your inboard pad. This is your outboard pad, and basically just the front first. You kind of got to get one side started a little bit before. It's hard to do this with one hand, and then there you go. And now you do the same thing to the back side. What I forgot to show you is that I put a little dollop of dielectric grease or brake caliper grease at each point where it makes contact. Over here as well, where they slide back and forth, I put a little dab of grease. Okay, so there we go. It's mounted, top and bottom pin, nice and snug. Those don't have to be super, super tight. And then this piston wasn't pushed in enough. So what I did was I snuck the top bolted with the caliper hanging up here. And I got my screwdriver in front of the piston, and I used the back of the brake pad, and I just applied just a little bit of pressure, and it went in the rest of the way, and it slid down. And then I moved this caliper pin in, slid it down the rest of the way, and then I tightened my bolts up, and now good to go. That's your brake job.